If you love animated content that breaks down book summaries and dives into fascinating topics, we'd love your support. Creating these videos takes a lot of time and effort, and by subscribing, you help us continue bringing you this valuable content consistently. Your support means the world to us. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this exciting journey. And now, let's continue with the video. The Extended Mind. Chapter 1. Think outside the brain. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the brain. It tells us that using our heads is the key to focusing more intensely, thinking more imaginatively, and solving the problems that stump us. But the human brain is actually quite limited in what it can do, solve, and remember on its own. Use your head as much as you like. But a growing body of research suggests that the real action happens elsewhere. Contrary to everything society has taught us, it's often the stuff outside our heads that makes us truly extraordinary. Human history is full of examples of this. Individuals whose moments of genius align with circumstances that have nothing to do with the brain. Consider, for instance, Jonas Salk, the virologist who developed one of the first successful vaccines for polio. Salk attributed his breakthrough not to long days spent thinking in the lab, but to long hours wandering a 13th century monastery. The spirituality of the architecture there was so inspiring that I was able to do intuitive thinking far beyond any I had done in the past, he reported. It was under the influence of that historic place that he would design the experiments that ultimately produced the vaccine. Salk's writings suggest that built spaces have the power to unlock our minds. Why might this be true? And what does this mean for the environments we design or choose to inhabit? Another, different example, the pioneering therapist Susie Orbach attributes her keen understanding of her patients to her ability to tune into her own body. She believes this sensitivity to her inner self, beyond all training and education, is what enables such acute insights about others. Again, why might this be true? And what can we do if we want to develop this introspective skill? I'm Annie Murphy-Paul, and I explore these types of questions in my book, The Extended Mind, The Power of Thinking Outside the Brain. In this visual guide, I'll share some key insights from the book, from the latest research to evidence-based actions we can practice to expand our mental capacity. We'll explore why moving our bodies can heighten perception and engrave information into our memories. We'll consider how physical spaces, both natural and human-made, influence our physiology and which unleash our creativity. And the final chapters of this guide will concern the other minds around us. How can we think with other people and through other people to come up with ideas and solutions far better than what we create on our own? My hope is that by the end of the summary, you'll have a better understanding of what it means to think, and be able to use more than just your head to do so. I hope you'll join me. Chapter 2. Thinking Through Movement. Dr. Jeff Fiedler, a radiologist at the Mayo Clinic, no longer reviews X-ray images sitting down. These days, he analyzes radiological slides while walking on a treadmill. This decision didn't come from a need to multitask or a desire to be less sedentary. Rather, Fiedler was convinced that he was better at identifying abnormalities in X-rays when he was moving. When he tested his hypothesis with a group of radiologists, he found that, on average, those who remained seated spotted irregularities in the images 85% of the time. But those who walked while reviewing X-rays identified a full 99% of the irregularities. Fiedler's test supports an old intuition, one held by thinkers, doers, and problem solvers throughout history. Moving the body seems to jumpstart the mind. Why would this be the case? I'll share two ideas. The first has to do with perception. When we're in motion, our visual senses sharpen, especially where it concerns details appearing in our periphery. This biological response surely helped our ancestors to survive. And now, the same response may help with more modern problems. For instance, radiologists hunting for subtle shadows and irregular shapes. Second, the urge to move is a natural one. Humans were meant to move. We often control this impulse because our culture associates being serious or industrious with stillness. But this can backfire. Trying not to move can fatigue our brains, making us tired and less focused. Moving, in whatever way feels natural or optimal to you, can do the opposite. Indeed, the philosopher and essayist Henry David Thoreau once mused, "Methinks that the moment my legs begin to move, my thoughts begin to flow." And Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning economist, has even calculated the exact pace that sparks greater mental awareness in himself, a 17-minute mile stroll. Putting our bodies into motion doesn't just benefit us, it also helps other people process and remember information. Research shows that moving our hands, gesturing, amplifies the impact of speech. Gestures don't just capture listeners' attention, they also direct this attention to the specific words being said. This boosts both understanding and retention. In fact, one study found that talking points punctuated by gesture were 50% more likely to be remembered 30 minutes later. And the impact of a well-timed gesture goes beyond memory. Company founders who skillfully incorporated gesture into their pitches were 12% more likely to get venture funding in one 2019 analysis. And when it comes to learning, instructional videos using adept gesture help people more easily transfer what they learn to new situations. Our hands are impressive tools. They can prompt attention, mime intention, add persuasive force, and engrave information into our and others' memories. Like our bodies, the one thing they shouldn't have to be is still. Considering the movements and postures of our bodies is one way to support and extend our minds. Next, we'll move inwards and explore how tuning into sensations within our bodies can help us become more emotionally aware and resilient. Chapter 3. Tuning into your body. Can you hear your own heartbeat? Are you aware of it throughout the day? It may surprise you to learn that people's answers to this question vary widely. Some ask, how on earth would I know what my heart is doing? Others are dumbfounded by a different idea, that anyone could ignore an organ constantly beating away in their chest. The truth is, people naturally differ in how finely tuned they are to the inner state of their bodies, a skill called interoception. This internal awareness comes with certain benefits. All these benefits help us make sounder decisions. What does this mean for those of us who aren't interoceptive champions? While differences in interoceptive awareness do arise from factors like genetics, they are also shaped by our environments, communities, and cultures. This tells us that interoception is a skill anyone can cultivate. How can we get better at tuning into our bodies? First, let's understand what exactly we're trying to sense. Just as we have sensors that take in information from the outside world, the eye's retina, the ear's cochlea, the tongue's taste buds, and so on, we have sensors inside our bodies. These catalog all the sensations generated within our muscles, our internal organs, even our bones, and send them to the brain. Our brains use this stream of information to maintain our internal balance, how we feel in the moment. All this happens without our conscious awareness. But two common techniques can help us notice and use these signals. 1. The body scan, and 2. Affect labeling. The body scan, often used to begin a meditation session, is rooted in the Buddhist traditions of Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. To practice it, mindfulness pioneer Jon Kabat-Zinn suggests first getting into a comfortable position, seated or supine. With your eyes gently closed, take some time to become familiar with the rise and fall of your breath. Then, start sweeping your attention along your entire body, focusing first on the toes. Try to channel your breathing to them as well, so that it feels as if you are breathing into your toes and out from your toes, advises Kabat-Zinn. After a few breaths, travel your attention up your body. Focus on your heel, ankle, knee, and so on, ending with your neck and face. Do this with curiosity, not judgment. The goal of the scan is simply to become attuned and familiar with yourself, in this moment. Once you're able to tune into the feelings of your body, a powerful next step is to name these feelings, a technique called affect labeling. The simple act of giving a name to what we're feeling reduces brain activity in areas that process fear and uncertainty. In other words, our stress response dials down. And over time, these labels will come easier and be more accurate, enabling us to pause, take stock, and act more purposely in our daily lives and interactions. Chapter 4. Thinking, Outside and Inside. The Extended Mind. In the previous chapters, we explored different ways our bodies can become extensions of our minds. Now, let's consider how the physical spaces we inhabit can help our thinking too. We often liken brains to computers. But our brains differ from electronics in at least one critical way. A laptop works the same way whether it's being used inside a windowless office or at a park. Our brains aren't like that. They are deeply affected by our environment. It matters whether we are outside or inside, and it matters what that inside looks like. That's because our minds didn't evolve in a world full of office buildings, sharp lines, and relentless motion. They were tuned, eons ago, to the frequencies of the organic world. And it's within these frequencies that our brains thrive. Within 20 to 60 seconds of being exposed to nature, our heart rate slows and our blood pressure drops. We become more relaxed. This helps us focus. After contact with nature, we catch more mistakes, and we're better at thinking on our feet. We're also more imaginative outside. That's because natural spaces are both less structured and more varied, which stimulates our minds. So, whether you feel aimless and are seeking inspiration or consumed with worry about an upcoming deadline, a trip outside can help you reset. Given these benefits, we should all spend more time outside. But if that's not possible, there's another question we can ask. How can we make the inside more like the outside? Researchers at Harvard's Chan School of Public Health wondered this too. So they asked people to spend time in one of two indoor environments. One was windowless, carpeted, and used fluorescent lighting. The other contained biophilic elements like windows, allowing scenic views and natural light, wood floors, and potted plants. People in the biophilic environment were happier, calmer, and experienced a 14% improvement in their short-term memory. This research suggests that it's possible to bring the outside in. Knowing all this, it may be tempting to turn rooms of cubicles into nature-drenched and open-concept spaces. But when it comes to creating spaces for productive thought, it's important to maintain balance. Natural spaces allow us to let go of our laser focus, to pause, restore, and imagine. But our minds also need spaces that support us when it's time to turn that focus back on. That's where walls come in. When others can see our work, we're less likely to try new things. No one wants to fail in front of others. Walled spaces offer a private space to test and tinker with our ideas. And they provide protection, shielding us from distraction. So when you're ready to venture back inside, find a room of your own for deep productivity. This room doesn't need to be stark or empty. In fact, if you decorate it in a way that makes it feel yours, you'll feel more confident and capable. By understanding the power of spaces, we can seek out the settings that enrich us, providing us with peace, structure, and inspiration. Chapter 5. Transactive Memory. The Extended Mind. In 1997, a philosophy professor named Andy Clark experienced what he called a sudden and somewhat vicious type of, hopefully transient, brain damage. What caused his condition? He had left his laptop behind on a train. Describing his reaction as brain damage may seem like an overreaction, but consider what Clark had suddenly lost. Communications, calendars, works in progress, lesson plans, all these things had vanished in one fell swoop. Clark was left, in his words, dazed, confused, and visibly enfeebled. The experience caused him to wonder if his computer had become a part of his mind. His laptop was more than just a record of his work and communications. In many cases, it was the only place these details could be accessed. His mind had offloaded some of this information onto the machine entirely, leaving him space to think about other things. This may seem like a strange notion, but caching knowledge in places outside our brains is something we all do. For instance, few of us know the phone numbers of all the people we regularly call or text. We don't need to. All we need to know is where we've stored that information. And we don't just store knowledge in digital spaces and objects, we store it in people, too. If your partner is the fixer around the house, you may never learn how to fix a leaky faucet. Instead, you just need to know how to find your partner. This phenomenon, first introduced by psychologist Dan Wegner, is called transactive memory. Transactive memory systems form spontaneously in any group of any size, and the resulting group mind renders each member smarter than they could be alone. Each person remembers some things personally, and then can remember much more by knowing who else might know what they don't, says Wegner. For the rest of this chapter, I'll share some tips about how to leverage the power of the group mind to solve complex problems. After all, transactive memory systems may arise automatically, but some are more effective than others. To explore this idea, let's consider workplace teams. Research shows that working groups perform best when each person is responsible for a specific task or type of information. This ensures that all the key aspects of a project are covered without redundancy. It also creates knowledge champions, colleagues who have deep and specialized expertise. These specialties should be assigned at the start of a project and, ideally, align with each member's distinctive talents and experience. The next step is to make sure knowledge can flow freely and efficiently. Each team member needs to know whom they should turn to when new questions and challenges arise. A simple way to do this is to appoint a meta-knowledge champion, someone who can keep track of who knows what and direct questions and tasks to the right people. When we exist in groups like these, it can seem like no information is out of our reach. That's because even the knowledge that isn't in our heads will be within reach of our minds. Chapter 6. Collective Intelligence. In the previous chapter, we learned that we can extend our minds by accessing the unique knowledge other people hold. But the group mind is much more than just a complex filing system. Centuries ago, the group mind was believed to be a terrifying, dangerous thing, powerful, yes, but also primitive, irrational, and even violent. And it's true that, without checks or constraints, group thinking can lead to foolish choices and mob mentalities. But under the right conditions, groups can also tap into an eerie collective intelligence, solving problems better and faster than any one member could alone. As an example, consider the USS Palau, a massive aircraft carrier that suddenly began losing steam pressure while off the California coast. Without their steam operations, the crew was left with no way to slow down, steer, or navigate. And they were moving too fast to drop anchor. The 17,000-ton ship was headed straight for the crowded San Diego harbor. To keep the ship under control and guide it to safety, the crew would need to get constant updates on the ship's position, calculated in reference to landmarks seen on shore. The job of calculating these bearings, once per minute, fell to the ship's quartermaster chief, Richards. Making these calculations quickly and under stress was next to impossible. He used calculators, notes, and gestures to try and relieve some of the mental burden. But this challenge proved too difficult for one mind, even an extended one, to solve. So Richards recruited one more resource, the mind of his crewmate, Silver, quartermaster second class. After 32 attempts, the two crafted their own unique, elaborate system to collaborate and conquer the seemingly impossible task. Simultaneously, the rest of the crew was developing their own systems to detect other ships and avert disaster on the seas. As the navigation data started to come in, an intricate choreography emerged, with each person contributing their unique expertise to guide the ship to safety. No single individual in the crew, acting alone, could have kept control of the ship and brought it safely to anchor, said Edwin Hutchins, a psychologist on the ship. The story of the USS Palau is one of many showcasing both the limits of the single mind and the power of multiple minds working in concert. And the need for this kind of collaborative thinking is becoming more and more common. That's because, in so many ways, our world today looks nothing like the world our brains evolved for. Our technologies are far more complex, our expertise is more specialized, and information is abundant and everywhere. All this creates problems so intricate that any single mind laboring on its own is likely to be overwhelmed. To solve them, we have to think in groups. Collective intelligence may seem like an elusive superpower. But creating a group mind is neither senseless nor supernatural. In fact, one way to get a collection of brains to start thinking as one is simply this: move together. In Japan, everyone from the youngest schoolchildren to top executives practices a short movement routine, narrated daily by Radio Taiso at 6:30 a.m. These kinds of coordinated movements have more than just physical benefits. A wealth of research shows that people who sync their bodies are also primed to sync their minds. And moving together encourages the formation of emotional bonds too, producing trust and rapport in groups ranging from sports teams to army units. For similar reasons, people who need to think together should learn together. That is, in person and at the same time. Teams that train together collaborate more effectively, make fewer mistakes, and perform at a higher level than teams trained individually. So, there you have it, the extended mind in miniature. There is more we can explore, but the ultimate takeaway is a simple one. When it comes to thinking better, there is so much more at our disposal than just our heads. We can think with our bodies, our surroundings, and our relationships, too. The main ideas, Chapter 6. The group mind was once thought to be primitive, irrational, and dangerous. Under the right conditions, groups can tap into collective intelligence, making them smarter than any individual member. Many problems in today's modern world can only be solved by groups. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this exciting journey.